All right, so are you ready to dive into some really cool stuff today?
Always. Hit me.
All right, so we're looking at advice and anecdotes, all about personal growth. You know,
Mm-hmm.
those stories and pieces of wisdom that we hear about that can help us be better,
Right.
unlock our potential, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But what I think is so interesting about these sources you sent is they're not just about, hitting goals or being successful.
Right.
They're about understanding ourselves better.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head with that. It's like we get so caught up in the how-tos of self-improvement
Right.
that we forget to ask ourselves why. Why are we setting these goals? What do we really want?
Exactly. So let's jump right in with a great example of this. The first story is about Shaoli, who just got this huge promotion to manager,
Huge.
but instead of, celebrating,
Right.
she's totally freaking out.
Classic.
I think we can all relate to that feeling at some point.
Oh, absolutely. It's like that fear of being exposed as inadequate even when you've achieved something great.
Yeah,
Like imposter syndrome.
totally. And in Shaoli's case, it's a classic example of what we call low sense of worthiness, and that's a psychological barrier that prevents so many of us from owning our success and really embracing those new opportunities.
Okay, so how did she overcome it? It sounds like she had a pretty wise mentor helping her out.
She did. A colleague suggested something really simple yet powerful: daily journaling, but with a twist. She had to write down 3 things she was proud of each day,
Hmm.
every single day.
At first, I bet she had trouble even thinking of anything.
Oh, she did. She struggled to find even the small things to celebrate. It's so easy to get caught up in that negative self-talk,
Right.
and to overlook all those little victories that happen throughout the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
But over time, as she consistently acknowledged her positive contributions, something fascinating happened. Her self-perception started to shift.
Really?
Yeah.
So just acknowledging those small wins actually started to change how she saw herself. Exactly. It's almost like those small wins, consistently recognized, they began to build on each other.
It's like that saying, what you focus on expands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Shalley's journaling, it wasn't just a feel-good exercise. It was subtly rewiring her brain. This is the power of positive reinforcement, a key principle in cognitive behavioral therapy.
Interesting.
By repeatedly reinforcing her own value, she was building a stronger sense of self-worth.
So she was basically training her brain to see the good.
You got it.
That's really cool. So what were the results?
They were remarkable. She became a confident and effective leader, all thanks to those 3 daily wins.
Wow, that's amazing. Such a great example of how a small, consistent action can lead to massive change. I'm curious, what 3 things could you celebrate today?
I love that question, and it leads perfectly to our next story, which is all about recognizing and utilizing our own unique strengths.
Okay.
This time we're going to meet Amin. He was this brilliant language whiz, but stuck in a job that completely ignored his natural talents.
Oh no, what kind of job was it?
Finance, a finance-focused company.
Ugh, I can almost feel the frustration trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, so to speak.
Exactly. And he was pouring all this energy into trying to fix this perceived weakness in finance,
Right.
but it was just exhausting him and honestly not very effective.
I bet.
But what's crucial here is that Amin eventually had a light bulb moment. He realized that constantly focusing on his weaknesses was actually preventing him from reaching his full potential.
It's so counterintuitive, right? Like we're often conditioned to think about what we lack
Right.
instead of what we excel at.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting. Amin's turning point came when he finally decided to embrace his strengths, those incredible language skills he'd always downplayed. He actually went out on a limb and requested a transfer to a role where he could really shine.
Okay, so what happened? I'm on the edge of my seat. Don't tell me it was a total disaster.
Not at all. In fact, it was the best decision he ever made.
Huh?
He went from feeling like a fish out of water to becoming a seriously invaluable asset.
Oh.
He spearheaded major international collaborations and just thrived in his new role.
That's amazing. It's a real testament to the power of playing to our strengths. It's not about ignoring our weaknesses. It's more about focusing our energy on what we're naturally good at.
You got it.
When we do that, we tap into something psychologists call a flow state. Have you heard of that?
Absolutely. Flow state is that feeling of being completely absorbed in an activity where time seems to fly by. You're just completely in your element.
Yeah, totally. And when we're in flow, we're more productive, more creative, and more fulfilled.
Like I'm in.
Totally. This really makes me think, what are those activities that make you feel energized and completely in the zone?
Good question.
Those might just be clues to your own unique strengths. So think about that for a second.
Yeah, that's great. Now our next story dives into the tricky relationship between knowledge and action.
Oh, this is a good one.
We're going to revisit Shali, but this time she's on a mission to lose weight. The catch: she knows exactly what to do, but she's stuck in that frustrating cycle of planning and procrastination.
Oh, I think we've all been there at some point. It's one thing to know what's good for us,
Right.
and another thing to actually do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how did Xiaoli break free from that pattern? Well, her breakthrough came from a surprisingly simple step: a commitment to a 15-minute evening walk.
Seriously,
Just 15 minutes, that's it.
it seems almost too easy. But I guess sometimes the smallest actions can have the biggest impact.
That's exactly what happened with Shali. Those 15-minute walks, they were more than just exercise. They were a catalyst for change. What's so intriguing here is the ripple effect. Those walks led to weight loss, of course, but they also improved her mood and gave her the energy and motivation to make healthier choices throughout the day.
It's like those 15 minutes were unlocking her willpower in other areas of her life.
It's a perfect example of what we call the small wins principle. Tiny, consistent actions build momentum, leading to bigger and more lasting changes over time. Xiaoli's story is a reminder that we don't need these grand gestures to create positive change. Sometimes the smallest step in the right direction is all it takes.
I love that. So this leads to a crucial question for our listeners. What's one tiny action you can take today towards a goal you've been putting off?
Yeah.
Remember, it doesn't have to be huge, just a small step in the right direction. Okay, let's move on to our last story for this section, which explores the concept of building an internal value system. We're going to meet Xiao Wang, a talented designer whose confidence was entirely dependent on external validation, particularly client feedback.
Oh, I know the type.
He was on an emotional roller coaster, always seeking approval from others.
Exhausting.
I get that. It's easy to fall into the trap of letting external validation define our worth, especially in creative fields.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it can be so exhausting, not to mention detrimental to our well-being.
Right.
But here's where things get inspiring. Xiaowang realized this wasn't sustainable and decided to shift his focus.
Okay, so how did he go from seeking external validation to finding that confidence from within?
Well, he started by focusing on his own growth and the intrinsic joy he found in the creative process itself. He began to prioritize his personal values over the opinions of others. This is where we start to see the concept of self-efficacy come into play.
Okay, break that down for me. What exactly is self-efficacy?
Self-efficacy is essentially the belief in our own ability to succeed. It's about trusting our own judgment and capabilities, even when we face challenges or criticism.
Right.
And it's crucial for long-term success and well-being because it allows us to persevere even when things get tough.
So by focusing on his own growth and what truly mattered to him, Xiaoan was able to build that self-efficacy and find a sense of stability that wasn't dependent on outside approval.
Right.
It's almost like he found his own internal compass.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. He wasn't seeking validation. He was seeking alignment with his own values and creative vision.
His story is such a powerful reminder that true confidence isn't about what others think. It's about knowing your own worth and living in accordance with your own values. So, here's a question for all of you listening. What values or principles are most important to you, regardless of what others think? And how can you align your actions with those internal compass points?
Such an important question to reflect on. It's at the heart of everything we've been talking about today.
It is, and we're going to continue exploring that idea in just a bit.
Liao's journey really highlights how aligning our actions with our values can lead to a deeper sense of fulfillment. But, it makes you wonder, how do we actually define those values in the first place? It's not always so easy to pinpoint what truly matters to us, right?
Yeah, you're right. It's like we have all these external voices and expectations swirling around us,
Right.
making it hard to hear our own inner voice. Sometimes I think it's easier to define what we don't want than what we do want.
That's a great point. And it's something we often overlook in our quest for personal growth. We get so focused on achieving goals, we forget to stop and ask ourselves, are these goals even aligned with what I truly value?
Yeah, it's like, are we chasing someone else's dream?
Exactly. It's about peeling back those layers of societal conditioning and getting to the core of who we are and what we stand for. And I think Xiao Wang's story illustrates this beautifully. He had to let go of that need for external validation and start trusting his own instincts, his own creative vision.
And that's where that internal compass comes in, right?
Yeah.
It's like having this guiding force within us that helps us navigate the complexities of life,
Yeah.
even when the external world feels chaotic.
Absolutely. And it's so fascinating how this idea of an internal compass connects to the other themes we've been exploring. Recognizing our worth, playing to our strengths, and taking action. They're all so intertwined.
Right, I see that. When you know your worth, you're more likely to identify and embrace your strengths. And when you're operating from your strengths, you're more likely to take action and pursue your goals with confidence.
Exactly. And when your actions are guided by an internal value system, you're less likely to be swayed by external pressures or opinions. You're driven by a deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment, just like showing.
So we've been talking about personal growth on an individual level, but I'm curious, how do these principles translate to a larger scale? Like, what about teams and organizations? Can these ideas be applied there too?
Oh, absolutely. Imagine a team where each member feels valued, recognized, and encouraged to use their unique strengths. A team where collaboration and innovation flow naturally because everyone is aligned with a shared purpose.
That sounds amazing. I can already picture the incredible things they could accomplish when everyone is operating from that place of strength and alignment.
Exactly. When individuals feel empowered and supported, they're more engaged, more productive, and more likely to go above and beyond. And that positive energy ripples outward, creating a culture of excellence and achievement.
That makes me think about the leaders who have had the biggest impact on my life. It was never about micromanaging or dictating what to do. It was about creating an environment where people felt safe to take risks, learn from their mistakes, and truly shine.
Yes, you've hit on something crucial there. It's about fostering an environment where people feel seen, heard, and valued for their unique contributions. And that's what unlocks true potential, both on an individual and a collective level.
It's like those ripples expanding outward. From individual growth to thriving teams to impactful organizations, it all starts with that internal shift towards self-awareness, recognizing our worth, and aligning our actions with our values.
And it doesn't stop there. Think about communities, social movements, global initiatives. These principles are applicable on a much broader scale. Imagine a world where everyone felt empowered to pursue their passions and contribute to something greater than themselves.
Whoa, that's a beautiful vision. A world where everyone feels empowered to make a difference, to create positive change, and to leave their mark on the world.
And it all starts with each individual's commitment to personal growth and self-discovery. By unlocking our own potential, we inspire others to do the same. It's like a chain reaction of positive change.
Okay, so we've explored these incredibly powerful concepts, but I have to ask, what are some practical steps our listeners can take to start implementing these ideas in their own lives? Where do we even begin? I know it can feel kind of overwhelming, right? Like, where do we even start with all this?
You're absolutely right. It's easy to get kind of lost in the big picture, but that's exactly why we need to break it down into manageable steps.
Mm.
Remember Shelley's journaling practice. That's a fantastic starting point for anyone looking to, build a stronger sense of self-worth.
Right.
Just take a few minutes each day to
Sure.
reflect on what you're proud of, no matter how small those accomplishments might seem.
Yeah, I've tried that before, and it's amazing how quickly those little wins add up.
Right.
You start to see yourself in a whole new light.
It's like you're training your brain to focus on the positive,
Yeah.
and the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Yeah.
It's like building a muscle of self-appreciation.
I like that. A muscle of self-appreciation.
And once you start recognizing your worth, it becomes much easier to identify those unique strengths we were talking about earlier.
Right.
So think back to those activities that energize you, the things you lose yourself in.
Mm.
Those are often clues to your natural talents.
It's like those things we're naturally drawn to.
Right.
The things that come easily to us, those might be our superpowers in disguise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate the power of those innate abilities. And here's something else to consider. Don't be afraid to experiment.
Ooh, I like that.
Step outside your comfort zone, try new things.
Yeah.
You never know what hidden strengths you might discover along the way.
I love that. It reminds me of that growth mindset we hear so much about.
Right.
But what about that gap between, knowing what we should do and actually doing it?
Right.
I think that's where a lot of us get stuck.
Yeah.
We have the knowledge, the desire, but something holds us back from taking action.
Absolutely. That's where the power of small wins comes in.
Okay.
Break down those big, daunting goals into tiny, manageable steps.
Yeah.
Think of it as creating a staircase to success.
Okay.
Each small step is a victory that propels you forward.
So instead of aiming to write a whole novel, Maybe start by committing to writing a page a day.
Exactly.
Or instead of, trying to overhaul your entire diet overnight,
Right.
maybe focus on adding one more serving of vegetables to your meals.
There you go. It's all
Yeah.
about building momentum and celebrating those small victories along the way.
Right.
Consistency is key here. Remember, even the tiniest steps taken consistently over time can lead to remarkable results.
Yeah.
Just think of Shiali and her 15-minute walks.
That's such a great reminder. Okay, what about building that internal compass we were talking about earlier? It sounds great in theory, but how do we actually, define our values and make sure our actions are aligned with them?
It all starts with self-reflection. Ask yourself some tough questions. What truly matters to you? What principles guide your decisions? What kind of impact do you want to make on the world? It might be helpful to think about people you admire, people who embody the qualities you aspire to. What values do they represent?
That's a really insightful way to approach it. It's like creating a blueprint for the kind of person you want to be, the kind of life you want to live.
Exactly. And once you have a clearer sense of your values, you can start making small choices each day that reflect those principles. It might be speaking up for what you believe in, even when it's uncomfortable, or setting boundaries that protect your time and energy, or simply choosing to act with kindness and integrity, even when no one is watching.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk, right? Aligning our actions with our words and living in a way that feels authentic and true to ourselves.
Exactly. And remember, this is an ongoing process. We're all constantly evolving and learning and refining our internal compasses as we navigate life's twists and turns. It's about being open to new perspectives, challenging our own assumptions, and continuing to grow and evolve.
This deep dive has been so inspiring. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit of strategies to put into practice. It's all about, self-awareness, embracing our strengths, taking action, and building that internal compass.
And remember, it's not about perfection. It's about progress. Embrace the journey, celebrate the small wins, and never stop exploring your potential.
So to wrap things up, here's a final question for all of you amazing listeners. What one small step can you take today to start living a life that is more aligned with your values and aspirations? Keep that question in mind and remember the power to unlock your potential lies within you.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of self-discovery.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.